At the family dinner that evening, everyone was present except for Flora and Jacob. Unbeknownst to anyone, just beyond the door, the two were locked in an embrace, kissing each other passionately. Hello, everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. Jacob let out a seductive, muffled groan the moment he unbuckled his belt and entered her completely. Flora arched her slender, pale neck, biting her lip hard to suppress the unbearable moans. Softly pleading, "Brother, be gentler, Mom and Dad are still outside." The door panel shook violently. Jacob pressed his thin lips to her neck, his voice low and hoarse, tinged with a hint of playful nonchalance. "What are you afraid of? If they find out, I'll run away with you. How about we get married in Europe?" Flora blushed, too shy to speak, as she looked at the astonishingly handsome man before her. A glimmer of hope flickered in her eyes, seeing her shy reaction. Jacob arched his captivating peach blossom eyes and deliberately teased her with a bit more force. "Not saying anything, you've had your way with me, and now you don't want to take responsibility." Flora, her eyes glistened with tears. If it were a few years ago, she would never have imagined herself being so absurd as to end up in bed with her stepbrother at a family banquet. But looking at the man before her, she still shimmered with affection and replied, "Take responsibility, I want to marry you, brother." The clock ticked round and round, and after what felt like an eternity, the passionate encounter finally came to an end. Jacob, looking at her, collapsed by the doorway. He lifted her into his arms with a smile tugging at his lips. "Didn't you say you had plans with friends today, sweetheart? It's almost time." Only then did she realize and hurriedly tried to get down to go to the bathroom. Jacob, but he simply carried her in. After another round of absurdity in the bathroom, Flora finally changed her clothes and rushed out the door. Fortunately, by the time she went out, the family dinner had already ended, and the living room was empty with everyone gone. Flora stepped out of the villa and was about to call a friend to say she would be late when a sudden buzzing sound rang in her ears. She looked up, her pupils suddenly contracting as she saw an out-of-control car hurtling toward her like a madman. Before she could dodge, she was violently thrown more than 10 meters and crashed heavily to the ground. Bang! Intense pain spread along her nerves, her body feeling as if it were being torn apart. Blood gushed out, pooling beneath her into a puddle. She forced her eyes open and saw Jacob dashing toward her. "Flora!" A buzzing filled her ears, the chaotic shouts and footsteps growing faint and distant. She didn't know how much time had passed when her consciousness, lost in darkness, briefly surfaced. In a daze, she heard Jacob talking with his brother. "Jacob, your sister's leg can still be saved with surgery now. Are you really giving up on the operation? She'll be disabled for the rest of her life." Jacob sneered, his voice colder than she had ever heard. "I personally arranged for someone to hit her. Why would I arrange for her surgery? The daughter of a homewrecker who ruined someone else's family. This outcome is exactly what she and her mother deserve." "True. But your sister lives and breathes dance. If she finds out she's disabled, she'll go mad. Speaking of which, you dated her for 5 or 6 years just for revenge. Not only did you sleep with her all this time, but now you're even crippling her legs. You're so ruthless. Did you never have even a shred of feeling for her?" "Feelings?" He seemed to find it laughable and indeed burst into laughter. "I only want to repay the suffering my mother endured tenfold, 100-fold. Onto that mother and daughter. I could never like her in my entire life, let alone have feelings for her. By the way, remember to give the driver some money to keep today's incident under wraps." Word by word, like a bolt from the blue, struck Flora's heart. She never expected that all these years, Jacob had been dating her not out of affection, but for revenge. At the age of 15, Flora followed her remarried mother to the Kelsey family and became the stepsister of the school heartthrob Jacob. At Chinghe No. 1 High School, there's a saying, you might not know the principal, but it's impossible not to know Jacob, because every girl in the school secretly has a crush on him. This statement is no exaggeration, and among them, it includes Flora. She secretly harbored feelings for him but never had any chance to get close. After learning they had become step-siblings, though disheartened, she still did her best to please him. Yet he remained consistently indifferent toward her, until the age of 18, Jacob. On the night of his graduation, she went to pick him up, only to find that he had been drugged. She was about to take him to the hospital, but in the car, he pinned her down. That night, it was the first time for both of them. From then on, the relationship between the two of them completely changed. Jacob, once he tasted the sweetness, he couldn't help himself. He was no longer distant. Instead, he lured her into bed again and again, calling her good girl as they tangled together intimately. The person she liked also liked her back. Flora sank into it completely, giving both her body and heart to him without reservation. For 6 years, the two secretly dated behind their families' backs. They would interlock fingers under the dining table, steal kisses in the living room and kitchen, and possess each other deep into every night. But until now, she has discovered that everything was just an elaborately designed revenge. Overwhelmed by pain and fury, she suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted. When she woke up again, Flora found herself still in the hospital. Jacob was sitting by the bed. Seeing her awake, he quickly grasped her hand. "I'm sorry, Flora, it's my fault for not protecting you well enough. Letting you suffer such a severe injury that you can no longer stand. Don't be sad, I promise you, I will do everything possible to heal your legs." If it were before, Flora would have collapsed on the spot upon hearing this tragic news, believing him without a doubt, but now, she just stared at his performance of affection with hollow, numb eyes, trembling all over, his haggard face, bloodshot peach blossom eyes, and the faint glimmer of tears seemed flawless, yet when she looked at him again, all she felt was strangeness. Jacob also quickly noticed that something was wrong with her and whispered, "Flora, why aren't you speaking? Does it hurt? Tell me, does it hurt? Pain?" "Jacob, it hurts so much." Seeing that she still wasn't speaking, Jacob finally grew anxious and hurried out to contact the doctor. And just after he left, Flora suddenly clutched her chest, her heart gradually overwhelmed with pain and despair. Tears falling one by one, the agony making it hard for her to breathe. "Jacob, 6 years. You actually slept for 6 whole years, and took revenge on me for 6 whole years." As I was in agony, Flora's mom pushed the door open and entered. Seeing her daughter covered in wounds, her eyes instantly reddened. "Mom." In front of her mother, Flora let down all her defenses and threw herself into her arms, crying uncontrollably. After the mother and daughter held each other and cried for a long time, Flora's mom finally calmed down and spoke with a choked voice. "Flora, don't be afraid, your leg isn't completely hopeless. Do you remember Justin, the one you were betrothed to as a child but who emigrated over a decade ago? He studied medicine, has a PhD, and is now an expert in orthopedics. I contacted him, and he said he's very confident he can cure you. I know you're attached to your current boyfriend and have always resented the arranged marriage, but right now, your leg injury is the most important thing. Will you just listen to me this once?" Hearing that there was a possibility of a cure, Flora felt a deep shock in her heart. Could these legs really, truly be healed? She wiped away her tears, and her heart, which had been as withered as dead wood, slowly came back to life. "I'll go." Flora's mom didn't expect her to agree so readily. "This trip might take a long time. Are you really sure? As long as my leg injury can heal." "I don't mind how long it takes." Flora's mom felt a weight lift off her heart and stood up to start preparing the visa and other matters. Flora quickly called out to her, "Mom, please don't tell my brother about me going abroad yet." The next second, the ward door was pushed open, and Jacob walked in. "What can't you tell me?" Flora's mom was busy rushing off, and Flora quickly lowered her head, hiding the redness and swelling around her eyes. "It's nothing, just something about my grandma." Fortunately, Jacob didn't suspect anything. He invited the dozen or so orthopedic specialists in and had them carefully examine the injury on her leg. All the doctors sighed in unison upon seeing the wound. "It's not a fatal injury, but the best treatment time was missed, so it's hard to fully recover." Hearing this, Jacob held Flora in his arms, looking even more heartbroken than her. "The injured one. Flora, even if you can't stand up in the future, your brother will take care of you for a lifetime. No matter what you become, I will always stay by your side. Sweetheart, just give me a little more time, and I will announce our relationship to everyone, then take you to get married." Words like these, Flora had heard dozens of times over the years, but this time, hearing the thunderous beat of his heart from his chest, she felt no excitement, only irony. She no longer had the energy to play along with him, saying, "Brother, I'm tired." She closed her eyes to rest. Jacob didn't think much of it, tucked her in, poured a glass of warm water, and showed her every care. Just then, a nurse making rounds saw this and couldn't help but feel envious. A tall, handsome partner who knows how to take care of his girlfriend is truly rare. Flora listened silently, tears once again uncontrollably streaming down her face. It's quite rare to find a partner who would drive a car and break their girlfriend's leg. Flora stayed in the hospital for 5 days. Jacob never left her side in the ward. From examinations and dressing changes to daily meals and routines, he took care of everything meticulously. But on the day she was discharged, he unexpectedly disappeared. Flora's mom drove the car to take Flora home. Explaining the reason on the way, "Flora, Jacob's dad said that friends were coming to visit today. Jacob went back early in the morning to entertain the guests. Don't blame him for not picking you up. Jacob isn't your biological brother after all, and I'm already very grateful that he has accepted us mother and daughter all these years." Hearing her mother's words, Flora's eyes couldn't help but redden again. Accepted? No, he never accepted it, so he deliberately took revenge on her, played with her feelings by dating her, and crippled her leg to ruin her. For a full 6 years, she was completely fooled, not noticing anything amiss. She was in unbearable pain, but afraid that Flora's mom would notice, she quickly wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes. After the car stopped at the doorstep, Flora's mom helped her daughter into the wheelchair while discussing the progress of the overseas treatment. I've already started the procedures for going abroad, and the visa should be approved in about 10 days. Flora, you will definitely get better. Upon hearing this news, Flora's face remained expressionless. Like a puppet that had long lost its soul, it wasn't until she entered the house and saw the woman sitting next to Jacob that her expression stiffened slightly. Jacob's dad saw that they had returned and quickly stood up to introduce. Flora, you're back. This is my friend's daughter, Elizabeth. She grew up with Jacob and has now come to work in City J. She specially came to visit us at home. At the first sight of Elizabeth, Flora knew exactly who she was, after all. The photo of her and Jacob had been sitting on his nightstand for years. Flora had seen it countless times and asked about it just as often, only to receive the same reply every time, a childhood friend. But now, seeing it with her own eyes, Flora knew that Jacob had deceived her again. His eyes were practically glued to Elizabeth. Flora couldn't bear the scene and tried to wheel herself back to the bedroom, but was stopped by Elizabeth. Miss Flora, I heard from Jacob that you had an accident recently and were badly injured. Why are you in a wheelchair? The atmosphere in the living room froze for a moment. Jacob felt a pang in his heart, then heard Flora reply, her eyes red, word by word. There was a car accident, both legs were crippled. I can't stand up anymore. Elizabeth showed a regretful expression. It's okay, you'll definitely get better. When I was a kid, I broke my leg dancing. And it was Jacob who carried me to the hospital and saved me. He was so worried back then that I might never shine on stage again, frantic with worry. Jacob's dad, you remember that, right? Jacob's dad, also afraid of upsetting Flora, quickly chimed in. Ah, yes, you two were inseparable as kids, as close as one person. Your dad and I often joked about arranging a marriage. It's just a pity we moved back to City J later, and the idea just faded away. Jacob suddenly interrupted. Dad, let's eat first. Flora unconsciously clenched her hands. She could tell that Jacob's dad wanted to set them up, as he was very eager for his son to start dating, get married, and settle down. She also realized that Jacob liked Elizabeth, not just in the past, but even now. Such a probing joke. If he didn't like it, he should have denied it outright, which would have been a way to decline an unwanted blind date. Yet he neither admitted nor denied it. That could only mean he still has feelings for Elizabeth, but he has to put on a show of unwavering affection in front of her for a while longer, which is why he changed the subject under the pretense of having a meal. At the dinner table, Jacob sat beside Elizabeth, occasionally serving her dishes. You don't like the taste of garlic, so I told the auntie in advance not to add any to these dishes. These are your favorite poached shrimp, give them a try. I picked them out myself this morning. Jacob, you often mentioned how skilled the housekeeper is at cooking when we chat, and I've been craving it for years. Now I've finally tasted it, and you still help me peel the shells like when we were kids. Flora silently watched all of this without saying a word. Elizabeth stood up to say goodbye, and he also rose to see her off. After watching him drive away, Flora then pushed the wheelchair alone and entered his study, when no one was home. He often took her to kiss and indulge in every corner, but never set foot here. She had no idea what the study looked like and had never entered it before, but when she finally pushed open this door, she discovered that the wall was covered with photos related to Elizabeth and countless sketch portraits. Inside the cabinet were carefully stored many gifts, each labeled with the year, the holiday, and Elizabeth's name. Hidden in the desk are thousands of letters, half of them sent by Elizabeth, and the other half are love letters he never sent, each word and sentence pouring out affection. And in the diary placed on the desktop, every page vents those hidden, unknown resentments. Today I ate the meal her mother made. It was so disgusting I vomited until 3 a.m. She even went out in the heavy rain late at night to buy me medicine, and got a fever of 40 degrees. Seeing her suffer actually made me feel better. During the day I deliberately said she was too reserved. And at night she wore lingerie and climbed into my bed, just as cheap and promiscuous as her mother. He got hurt in a fight and lied to her, saying it was to stand up for her. She was so moved that she donated blood until she passed out. It's ridiculously stupid, all these years together, to get into Jacob's heart. Flora would go to any lengths to give, pouring everything into being good to him, without expecting anything in return and without any regrets. Yet in his eyes, all of this actually turned into disgusting, desperate clinging. After just a few pages, Flora felt like she couldn't breathe. These things were like an invisible pair of hands, tearing her heart apart, leaving her bleeding and in excruciating pain. It hurts so much. How can a person hurt to this extent? Her palms were torn to shreds, and the taste of blood filled her mouth from biting her lips, yet she seemed completely unaware, not even knowing how she made it back to her room. When she came to her senses again, she saw Jacob slipping in silently, wrapping his long arms around her and pulling her into an embrace. "Why are you crying? Are you jealous? Flora, Elizabeth and I are really just friends. What my dad said was just a childhood joke, don't take it to heart, okay?" As he explained, he lowered his head to kiss her. As their lips met, Flora finally snapped back to reality and began struggling incessantly, tears streaming down her face. "Let me go. I'm already like this. Please let me go, Jacob, I beg you, let me go." Jacob saw her showing such a sad expression for the first time. His gaze froze, and he suddenly felt a bit flustered. He quickly held her tighter, coaxing her softly. All right, I won't kiss you anymore. I forgot your injuries haven't healed yet. We can't do this kind of thing. Recently I've been looking into countries where siblings can get married. Take a look at which one you like. And I'll take you there to get married, okay?" Looking at the list of countries on the screen, Flora felt an overwhelming chill surge through her heart. She remained silent, trembling all over, covering her face as she wept in agony. Flora didn't know when she had fallen asleep. Jacob didn't think much of it, assuming she was still struggling with the trauma of losing the use of her legs, and simply held her, whispering comforting words over and over. When she woke up, it was already the next morning, and there was no one by her side. With red-rimmed eyes, she finished washing up and went downstairs, only to see Jacob personally cooking breakfast and bringing it to her, speaking in an extremely gentle tone. "Flora, this is your favorite fish congee, and the juice was freshly squeezed by me. Try it and see if you like it." Flora looked at the steaming breakfast, but her mind kept drifting to the contents of his diary. Her voice trembled. "No need. I'm going to the dance theater." Hearing this, Jacob immediately picked up the car keys and insisted on driving her. She refused, but he insisted, pushing the wheelchair out the door. "I don't feel at ease letting you go alone. From now on, wherever you need to go, just tell me, no matter what I'm doing. I'll come to pick you up." Flora couldn't refuse, because now, she was already a broken person. She didn't even have the strength to refuse. When they arrived at the dance academy, she went to see the leadership alone and submitted her resignation. The other party expressed great regret, offering a lot of comforting words before finally signing the resignation form. The next moment, Elizabeth walked in, smiling brightly as she handed over a form. "Hello, I'm Elizabeth, here to report for duty today. MS, Elizabeth is joining our theater as the chief at such a young age. Truly a remarkable talent." Just as she was about to leave, Flora felt a slight tightness in her chest upon hearing this. Less than a week after her injury, Elizabeth, who had just arrived in City J, had taken her place as the principal of the National Dance Theatre. She didn't dare to look or think any further. Trembling, she pushed her wheelchair toward the elevator, but was stopped by Elizabeth, who had caught up to her. "Flora, do you have time to talk?" Flora didn't want to talk to her and tried to push her wheelchair away. Elizabeth reached out and grabbed the wheelchair. "Don't be so resistant. I just have a question for you. I've heard from Jacob for a long time that he has a sister who dances exceptionally well. She won the gold medal at the Towelie Cup in her first competition and became the principal dancer at the National Dance Theatre right after graduation. With a bright future ahead, I came to City J partly for Jacob, and partly to see what this talented dancer was like. But who would have thought that heaven envies talent? Your legs are ruined. It seems we'll never be able to stand on the same stage again." Although her tone carried regret, Flora couldn't help but sense a hint of schadenfreude in it. She said with a trembling voice, "What exactly do you want to ask me?" "If you're not going to ask, I'm leaving." Hearing the pain in her tone, Elizabeth laughed even more gleefully. "What I wanted to ask is about my relationship with Jacob. He's been protecting me since we were kids. At 5 or 6, he'd fight the boys in the yard for me. He'd pick me up and drop me off to school every day, and he'd prepare all kinds of surprises just to make me laugh. Later, after his mom passed away, he moved back to City J, and we hardly got to see each other. But he'd write me several letters every week, call me multiple times, and message me about his life there. Whenever I had a competition, he'd always show up to watch. It's been like this for 7 or 8 years, never changing. Everyone around me says he still likes me, but since he hasn't confessed, I don't know if it's true. You're his sister, what do you think?" She looked troubled, as if she were genuinely worried about this matter. Flora felt as if a dagger had pierced her heart. Bleeding profusely, she closed her eyes, trembling, her voice slightly strained. "Probably. Hearing her perfunctory reply, Elizabeth smiled. It seems you don't know either, but that's understandable. After all, you're not biological siblings. He definitely wouldn't be open with you. By the way, aside from that, I have another question for you. Actually, I came to City J at Jacob S. invitation. He recommended me for the lead position at the National Dance Academy a month ago and assured me that a vacancy would definitely open up. Tell me, how did he predict so early that you would get into a car accident? Flora had thought Jacob staged this car accident merely for revenge, to destroy her dreams, but she never imagined that part of it was also for Elizabeth. In an instant, her already faltering heart plunged into an endless abyss. Jacob, you've deceived me so bitterly. Panic and pain surged in her heart at once, and she instinctively pushed the wheelchair to leave. Elizabeth held on tightly, refusing to let go. She even deliberately leaned forward, and the whole person, along with Flora in the wheelchair, was about to fall down the stairs. Elizabeth just happened to be looking for someone. Jacob saw this scene and immediately rushed over, pulling Elizabeth into his arms before she could fall. Only Flora was left, tumbling down the tall, hard stone steps alone. Her unhealed wounds were torn open again, her body bruised black and blue all over, her forehead was gashed open with a terrifying bloody hole, blood gushing out like a spring. She was in so much pain she couldn't breathe, her body convulsing and twitching in a pool of blood. Before her consciousness completely faded, the last thing she saw was Jacob holding the unharmed but frightened Elizabeth, gently soothing her. When she woke again, Flora found herself in the hospital. Jacob was waiting by the bedside, and when he saw her wake, he looked as if a weight had finally been lifted from his heart. His voice was hoarse and low. Flora, you're awake. I'm sorry. I pulled the wrong person and made you fall down the stairs. Does it hurt? Hit me if you want. Hit your brother. He did look genuinely remorseful, but Flora knew that every word he spoke was a lie. How could his acting be so convincing, though he clearly liked Elizabeth? He had to unconsciously keep his distance. He cursed her as disgusting day and night, yet still acted as if he loved her to the bone. Flora felt a surge of emotions, trembling uncontrollably, unable to utter a single word. She didn't want to stay in the same room with him, so when the nurse said it was time for a checkup, she immediately agreed. After the checkup was done, her emotions gradually settled. As soon as she pushed the door open and returned to the ward, she saw Jacob holding her phone. His brow deeply furrowed. Mr. Justin. Which Mr. Justin? You've got the wrong number. Flora couldn't have gone abroad. Hearing this, Flora's heart skipped a beat. She wheeled herself forward, snatched back the phone, and quickly pressed the end call button, watching her movements. Jacob's face slowly showed a trace of suspicion. Flora, do you know this person? Flora lowered her eyes, trying to act as if nothing was wrong. No, I don't know them. Probably a scam call. The number indeed had no contact name saved, and it was an international call, so Jacob finally let go of his suspicion. He helped her lie back on the bed, glanced at the medical chart, and confirmed the situation with the doctor, seemingly very concerned about her condition. Taking advantage of his distraction, Flora quickly replied to Mr. Justin to explain the situation. By the time he finished his work, she had just cleared the messages and turned off her phone. Jacob stroked her face, gently wiping the reddened corner of her eye with his thumb, his voice warm and tender. The doctor said you're fine, you can be discharged the day after tomorrow. You've been so down lately after you're out. How about I take you out to relax? She didn't say anything. Jacob took it as her silent agreement. On the day of her discharge, he drove her to City J's largest opera house. Looking at the poster at the entrance that read National Dance Academy's lead dancer Elizabeth makes a stunning debut, Flora turned a shade paler. Flora, aren't you the one who loves dance the most? It just so happens that Elizabeth has a performance recently, so I thought I'd bring you to see it. Do you like it? The fleeting glint of satisfaction in his eyes was just caught by Flora. She knew he had deliberately brought her here just to provoke her. Making a dancer with paralyzed legs sit in the audience, watching the person who replaced her shine on stage, is indeed a highly vengeful act. Flora trembled slightly, her hands gripping the wheelchair until they turned almost white, as she swallowed the rising complex emotions. After entering, the stage curtains slowly rose. Elizabeth appeared gracefully, wearing a silver-white dance dress. Every movement, every spin, every step she took, Flora knew all too well. This dance. She had performed it thousands of times, so familiar it was etched in her heart, but now, she could only watch from the audience. Looking up, her heart ached with a bitterness that felt like something was stuck in her chest. She was in excruciating pain. Just as I was about to look away, I saw Jacob. He was completely immersed in the dance, his eyes filled with undisguised admiration and affection. Yet such a gaze had never appeared in his eyes when watching Flora's performances before. He would offer enthusiastic applause and the same old flattering words, as if he were genuinely happy for her. She thought this was his true heart, but now she realized how easy it is to distinguish between love and indifference, sincerity and pretense. A single glance is enough. After the performance, Flora wanted to go home. Jacob pulled her backstage instead. He handed the flowers he had prepared early to Elizabeth and raised an eyebrow. "Chief Sue, do you have time to take a commemorative photo with a fan like me?" Elizabeth blushed with shyness and immediately agreed, but the lounge was too crowded, so the two of them took the camera to the corridor, leaving Flora alone inside. Through the open door, she looked at the photo of the two of them together and suddenly thought of those photos pasted in his study. So the messy backgrounds in those photos were because they were taken backstage. He liked Elizabeth. So he followed her around like a fan, chasing her performances all over the country and abroad. But for her, even if she performed 30 consecutive shows in City J, he might not come to a single one, recalling the excuses he had used before: meetings, being too busy, having dinners. Flora felt her heart ache so much she could hardly breathe. She lowered her head as the fire alarm suddenly emitted a sharp, piercing beep. Thick smoke spread from the pile of props, and a raging fire shot up, quickly spreading toward them. Everyone was startled, screaming, and rushing toward the exit. Flora turned pale and also tried to push the wheelchair to leave, but in the crowded, panicked crowd, she could barely move and was soon pushed to the ground. She watched helplessly as the surging crowd passed by, as the fire reached her feet, and screamed hoarsely for help. "Ah, help me!" Countless legs stepped over her, yet not a single person stopped to help her up. She could only use her hands to struggle and crawl to the corridor, instinctively grabbing a man's trouser leg, and squeezing out a faint cry for help from her throat. "Help me!" The man bent down, just about to help her up, when he was stopped by someone beside him. Although the person lowered their voice, she clearly heard that sentence. "Jacob, the fire is so big, and you hate her so much. Just let it be. If she survives, it's her good fortune. If she burns to death, it can't be blamed on you." Hearing these words, the man pulled his leg out without hesitation, protecting the person beside him as they quickly left. Smoke obscured Flora's vision, and she couldn't see the figure in front of her clearly, but she heard clearly. The person who just spoke was Elizabeth, and the man was Jacob. The flames danced and licked at her clothes, devouring flesh and blood, searing dark red marks into her skin, driven by the instinct to survive. She mustered all her strength to roll over, extinguishing the flames on her body and tumbling toward the doorway. The firefighters arrived just in time and rescued her to a safe place. As soon as she came out, she locked eyes with Jacob, who had just turned around. Seeing her disheveled appearance, her hair singed black and a large burn on her calf, he seemed somewhat surprised. It was unclear whether he was surprised by the extent of her injuries or by the fact that she hadn't been burned to death inside. He acted as usual, coming over to hold her fearfully. "Flora, I was pushed out by the crowd and was just about to go in to save you. Thank goodness you came out safely." Flora no longer had the energy to engage with his act. She lowered her head, looked at the bright red bloodstain she had just left on his pant leg, and closed her eyes. "My leg has no feeling anymore. So how could it hurt, brother? If I had burned to death in there today, that would have hurt just like the day of the car accident. Unbearable pain. That day when I was hit, it hurt so much, and when I found out I was disabled, it hurt so much. It also hurt when I heard that you were only with me to get revenge." She said this in the calmest, coldest tone, without any hysteria. It made Jacob freeze on the spot. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something comforting as usual. But not a single word came out. In the end, he said nothing and carried her into the car. For the next 2 days, Jacob would go out every day and bring back a pile of gifts to Flora's bedroom. As if making amends, she looked at these mountains of gift boxes, feeling nothing inside. When the wound had healed somewhat, Flora's mom came up to help her pack her luggage. She also took a box and gathered everything related to Jacob, a whole box of condoms under the bed, secretly bought couple bracelets. Photos taken together, along with these unopened gifts. She threw them all into the trash. After finishing, Flora took out her phone and booked a flight ticket for tomorrow. Just after making the payment, she saw a message pop up on WeChat from Jacob. It was the address of a bar, but 3 seconds later, the message was retracted. "Flora, my brother sent it to the wrong person." Intuition told Flora that this matter definitely had something to do with her, because tomorrow is Jacob's birthday. And he has been going out frequently lately, no longer performing his deep affection in front of her as he did before. Fearing that such revenge against the world might cripple her again, she still sneaked to that bar in her wheelchair. After searching upstairs and downstairs several times, she finally heard a familiar voice outside room 318. Jacob, are you really planning to show the video of you and Flora in bed at tomorrow's birthday party? All your relatives are coming, right? If your dad and her mom see it, won't they faint on the spot? What do you know? That's exactly the effect I want. I just watched it, the video is so explosive, 72 positions. She did every single one just to please Jacob. Dance students really are flexible. Amid the commotion, Jacob's indifferent voice could be heard. The way she shamelessly lay beneath me deserves to be admired by everyone. When the time comes, I'll just say she drugged and seduced me. Her mom is a homewrecker. And she's just as promiscuous, like mother, like daughter. Her mom always brags about how well behaved her daughter is. Once she sees what kind of daughter she's raised, how could she have the nerve to stay in our house? For a moment, the entire private room erupted in wild exclamations. Damn, killing two birds with one stone. Jacob, that's a fucking brilliant move. Who says it isn't? I can't wait. TSK TSK. Just thinking about that scene is thrilling. Amid the burst of laughter, no one noticed the Flora outside. Having heard every word of their plan, Flora turned pale, a chill running through her. She recalled the tenderness with which Jacob used to coax her into making videos, his heartfelt words about just wanting to secretly watch them when he missed her, and she couldn't stop trembling. Jacob, oh Jacob, even the videos were part of a long-planned scheme. You hated me that much. After silently returning home pushing the wheelchair, Flora didn't know how long she had been sitting alone in her room. It wasn't until it was almost dark that she took the initiative to go find Jacob's dad. He had only learned today about her plans to go abroad for medical treatment and earnestly gave her many words of advice. Flora listened to each one, finally bowed to him, and stated her true purpose for coming. Jacob's dad, thank you for taking care of my mother and me all these years. I don't know when I'll be back once I leave, so I can only entrust my mother to you. I know you two have a very good relationship, but my mother always keeps things bottled up. For example, when she hears people call her a mistress, she gets sad for a long time. I hope you can talk to her and comfort her more often. Jacob's dad's eyes widened in shock, his voice filled with anger and surprise. Who's been talking behind your mother's back, calling her a mistress? Who told you that? Because the Kelsey family is a top-tier wealthy family. Flora heard a lot of rumors when she moved into the Kelsey household. She even asked Flora's mom privately and knew clearly that she did not interfere in the relationship between Jacob's parents. But even if she told this to Jacob, he wouldn't believe it, so she needed Jacob's dad to admit this personally, and could only try to guide him into revealing the truth. Many people say that brother seems to think so too. Jacob's dad heaved a heavy sigh, rubbed his temples, and told her the whole story from beginning to end. Back then, your mother and I were deeply in love and were supposed to get married. But because our family backgrounds were too different, we were forced to break up. After your mother got married, I had intended to remain unmarried for life. But my family pressured me into arranged meetings. Later, I signed a contract with Jacob's mother for a 10-year fake marriage, after which we would divorce. But after the marriage, she wanted to go back on the contract and tear it up, and even drugged me, which led to the birth of Jacob. When the 10-year period was up, I still decided to divorce. But she used Jacob as an excuse and refused to let it go, so this news was never made public. It wasn't until 2 years later when I reunited with your mother and learned she had been widowed for many years that I pursued her again, and we formed the family we have now. Jacob's mother kept causing trouble and even committed suicide after hearing about our marriage. Your mother and I thought it best to let the deceased rest in peace, so we never clarified these rumors. To think they've reached your ears, it's truly unbelievable. Watching Jacob's dad fly into a rage, Flora ended the recording, then she offered to take a look at the contract. Jacob's dad readily agreed and handed it to her. It's hard for us to talk to Jacob about this. Over the years, he has been deeply troubled by his mother's death. Since you and Jacob are the same age, please show this to him. Flora took the contract and nodded solemnly. After returning to the room, she transferred the recording to a USB drive and placed it, along with the contract, into a gift box. She took out a ribbon and was about to tie it when Jacob knocked and entered. Catching a glimpse of her empty room out of the corner of his eye, his gaze sharpened. Flora, why is your room so empty? Where are all the things I gave you? Flora said without changing her expression, making up an excuse. I didn't like any of them anymore, so I threw them away. Jacob didn't press further. He handed her the gift box in his hand. When she opened it, she found it was a very luxurious evening gown. Flora, tomorrow is my birthday, and I want to make our relationship public on this day. Will you wear this dress and attend with me tomorrow? Flora, seeing the anticipation in his eyes, she agreed. Okay. The smile in his eyes deepened as he leaned down to kiss her, but she quickly handed him the gift box she was holding. A trace of surprise flickered in his eyes, and he squinted for a moment before asking, "A birthday gift?" Flora nodded lightly, her tone calm and even, and quickly stopped him as he was about to open it. "Wait until tomorrow to open it." He raised an eyebrow, seemingly a bit surprised. "Then why give it to me today?" Flora smiled slightly. "I was just afraid that there would be too many people giving you gifts tomorrow, and you might not have time to receive mine. So I'm giving it to you early." Jacob ruffled her hair. "How could that be? In my heart, you will always be the most important." Flora also smiled. But the smile didn't reach her eyes. Yes, she is indeed the most important, because she is one of the people he hates the most. However, I hope he still feels the same when he opens this gift tomorrow. Then, brother, you must remember to open my gift the very first second the banquet begins. It seemed that taking a second or two to unwrap a gift before playing the intimate scene video wouldn't be too much trouble, so Jacob curled his lips into a smile. "All right. I'll definitely open it right away, big brother." The next day, Flora woke up very early. When she went downstairs, Jacob was already getting ready to leave. Seeing that she wasn't wearing the dress, he reminded her again with a smile, "The birthday party starts at 12 sharp, I'll head over first." "Flora, don't be late, I'll be waiting for you." "I won't be attending your birthday party, because the spotlight will only be on you," Flora silently answered him in her heart. Shortly after his car drove away, not long after, Jacob's dad and Flora's mom came down with their luggage. She obediently followed them, pushing the wheelchair, and got into the car. After arriving at the airport, the couple gave her many more instructions. When it was finally time to board, Flora's mom hurriedly handed her the contact information of the arranged marriage partner. "Flora, I won't be going with you. This is just an phone number. Contact him as soon as you arrive, okay?" She nodded obediently, took the information, and stored it carefully before boarding the plane with the assistance of the flight attendant. Before takeoff, she looked at the white clouds outside the window and sent one last text to Jacob. After sending it, she didn't care at all how shocked Jacob would be upon reading the message. She blocked all his contact methods and turned off her phone completely. From then on, there was no Jacob in Flora's world. Jacob's car slowly stopped at the entrance of the banquet hall, and as soon as the door opened, he was surrounded by a large crowd. "Jacob, you're finally here. We've been waiting for you for so long. We agreed to show the video today, and I've already arranged it with the hotel manager. Yeah, we guys got you the biggest screen, guaranteed to make sure everyone can see it clearly when the time comes." His buddies excitedly discussed what expressions the guests below the stage would have when the video played, their eyes full of anticipation. They've been looking forward to this day for so many years, and Jacob naturally walked in the very center of them, humming and laughing casually, tossing a small gift box in his hand. "What's the rush? It's still early, not everyone has arrived yet. Flora really thought I would announce our relationship today and even prepared a birthday gift for me." Everyone's gaze shifted to it, and they immediately understood, laughing knowingly. In previous years, on his birthday, Flora would carefully prepare gifts, sometimes priceless treasures, sometimes handmade items she worked on for months. There was even one year when, to cater to his desires, she endured being filmed in a compromising video in a public restroom. Unfortunately, in the end, all those things became the butt of his jokes, no matter what the gift was. He would scornfully trample it underfoot and throw it into the trash. This year's gift box was so light that his brothers immediately started speculating. "She didn't give Jacob her underwear, did she? Ha ha ha. If that's the case, today will be even more interesting." It could also be shares in the Kelsey family. She loves Jacob the most. After all, maybe she's prepared a share transfer agreement. Anyway, it's definitely something good. Once the video is released and the gift is unwrapped, everyone will know that Flora is the one desperately clinging to our Jacob. Jacob listened to those words, a satisfied smile spreading across his face. Ever since Flora was taken into the Kelsey household, he had planned this scheme. He wanted to avenge his mother, to let everyone know that the daughter born of the mistress was also a shameless wretch. He intended to repay every bit of suffering his mother had endured. A cold glint flashed in his eyes as he entered the banquet hall surrounded by a crowd. Quite a few people had already arrived inside. Since it was his birthday banquet, most were relatives from the family and close business partners, exactly what he had hoped for. Only on such an occasion could Flora be utterly disgraced. Someone greeted him, a relative from his mother's side. Jacob stopped to respond. "Jacob has grown so much. Do you have someone you like? It's about time to get married." That person's cheerful laughter brought to his mind the image of someone, Flora, who had once wept beneath him, saying she wanted to marry him. Flora, Jacob let out a scoff, finding it amusing. He figured that even now, she was probably still foolishly believing he would marry her. He smiled politely and responded, I have someone I like. Once the birthday banquet is over, I plan to be with her. He was referring to Elizabeth. He had told her that once this matter was settled, he would openly be with her. Thinking of the one he truly liked, Jacob's gaze softened, making his relative sigh with emotion. It's good to have someone you like, as long as the feelings are mutual. Family background doesn't matter, just don't end up like your mother back then. Remember to treat the Lin family well in the future. The relative hesitantly brought up his mother, causing Jacob to frown in confusion. What did he mean by don't end up like your mother? His mother had been driven to suicide by the other woman. He would only seek revenge for her. Jacob's expression turned cold. He still wanted to ask something, but his brothers called out to him. Jacob, hurry up and come over here. Forget it, anyway, they would all find out today what Flora had done. He followed his brother's steps to the backstage, where the hotel manager was already waiting. They were told how to operate the screen, just upload the video they wanted to play, and it would automatically play at the scheduled time. Jacob nodded. He intended to present the video once everyone had arrived. Time ticked by, and the previously agreed upon time had already passed, but neither Flora nor Jacob's dad, Flora's mom, had shown up. People at the scene were already whispering, wondering if something had happened to them. Jacob, should you call and check? Someone suggested. Yes, Flora loves you so much, she wouldn't be late for no reason. Maybe something really did happen. He looked displeased, took out his phone, and found that half an hour ago Flora had sent him a message. He opened it and immediately frowned tightly, his face turning as cold as frost, silently staring at the phone. His brothers noticed the change in his expression and couldn't help but grow curious. What's wrong, Jacob? Did something really happen? He let out a cold laugh. Flora found out that I was going to post her video today and asked me to open the gift first. Trying to be mysterious, does she think I won't post it just because she didn't show up? Everyone was astonished and hurried to check the message. She actually found out this woman has some skills. But we have the video in our hands, what's there to fear? Wait, Jacob, your family is here. Looks like Flora really isn't coming. Should we still play the video? In the distance, Jacob's dad and Flora's mom pushed the door open and walked in together, smiling as they took their seats in the front row, seemingly explaining to those around them why they were late. Jacob's gaze was inscrutable, lingering on Jacob's dad and Flora's mom's interlocked arms. When his biological mother was alive, his father treated her like a stranger, never that intimate. It wasn't until after his mother died and Flora's mom became his stepmother that he realized his mother's death was entirely because of this woman who stole his father away, and he filmed Flora to use her as a way to get back at Flora's mom, to let her know that the daughter born from an affair is just as shameless. He stared at them for a long time, but in the end, he nodded. Release it, of course we will. He manipulated the screen, uploaded the video, then picked up the microphone and walked onto the stage. Thunderous applause erupted from the audience. Jacob spoke at a leisurely pace. Thank you all for coming to my birthday party. But today's protagonist isn't me, it's my stepsister, Flora, although she couldn't make it here today. I've prepared a surprise for everyone. He spoke coldly, about to turn on the screen, when suddenly his brothers in the audience urgently called out to him. Jacob, come over here and look at this quickly. Jacob, Flora's mom doesn't seem to be the mistress. He frowned, wondering what they were up to at such a critical moment. Flora's mom couldn't possibly not be the mistress. His gaze swept over the anxious brothers who were eager to step in, then over the expectant guests below, and the confused yet curious Flora's mom. She was already a middle-aged woman, but her former beauty was still evident as she smiled faintly and turned to speak with Jacob's dad, who responded with an equally warm smile. Jacob watched the scene, and an infinite rage surged in his heart. Over the years, he had witnessed countless such occasions. No one ever showed respect for his biological mother, all because of her, that mistress. How could he change his mind at a time like this? They deserved every bit of this retribution. He expressionlessly turned on the screen, but the video that played was not Flora's compromising bedroom footage, but rather a conversation. I signed a contract with Jacob's mother to enter a 10-year sham marriage, then divorce, but after the wedding, she wanted to break the contract, drugged me, and that's how Jacob came to be. The 10-year term has long passed, and Jacob's mother and I divorced long ago. She just kept using Jacob as an excuse and refused to let it go, so it wasn't made public. But your mother was definitely not the other woman people claim. It's just that after Jacob's mother passed away, I didn't want this matter to affect Jacob. The man's helpless words came clearly from the screen, just as everyone had initially thought. They all heard the content. It turns out Flora's mom was not the other woman. Instead, Jacob's mother had been the one persistently, even going so far as to drug and scheme to have Jacob. The audience murmured among themselves, looking at the person on stage with disbelief. As for the birthday boy of the day, his face was pale. He never expected such an outcome. How could it be like this when his mother loved Jacob's dad so much? When she kept saying that Flora's mom had stolen his father away, it shouldn't have been like this. Yes, all of this must be fabricated. It definitely can't be real. Who changed my video? Who was it? This isn't real. He shouted on stage and immediately thought of those people who had called out to him backstage. Only they could have set up the big screen. They must have taken Flora's bribes. Jacob was furious. His gaze sharp and piercing, unable to withstand the pressure. Someone stepped forward to clarify. Jacob, don't be like this. We were just about to tell you that the gift box you threw aside, the one Flora gave you, contains this very thing, and even the contract from back then. We made a mistake. One of the men, who had been looking forward to this day, had a conflicted and pained expression. He was also the one who ultimately switched out the video, preventing Flora's bedroom video from being shown in front of everyone. But Jacob completely disbelieved this explanation. How could his mother be the one who made a mistake? His eyes were bloodshot as he snatched the paper, trying to find something wrong with it, but it clearly stated the terms of the contract between Jacob's dad and his mother from all those years ago. He panicked in an instant. Could it be that all these years of hatred were based on a mistake? Then what did all his actions up to now even mean? Trembling, he tore the paper to shreds and roared on the stage. Impossible, you're all lying to me. This is all fake. She was the mistress. Flora is the mistress's daughter. Both mother and daughter are despicable. They drove my mother to her death. Everything just now was fake. He wanted to smash the screen, but Jacob's dad stormed onto the stage, raising his hand and slapping Jacob hard across the face, the first time he had hit him in over 20 years. Although what she did back then was disgraceful, he was still his son, and his birth mother had passed away early. Over all these years, Jacob's dad had practically devoted himself to raising Jacob, but he never expected his own son, whom he had raised, to think this way. He was so furious that he pointed at Jacob and cursed. What on earth were you thinking? Neither Flora nor your stepmother has wronged anyone, let alone being the mistress and bitch you called them. Apologize. Apologize to your mother now. Jacob's dad struck with great force, and Jacob's face immediately swelled, but he stiffened his neck, panting heavily, his eyes bloodshot. She's the other woman. She drove my mom to her death. I could never accept her. Jacob's dad was furious and wanted to slap him again, but Jacob's phone happened to fall to the ground. He glanced at it casually and was almost enraged to the point of seeing red. His own son's phone was actually playing a video of him having sex with Flora. In it, Jacob was coaxing the younger girl into saying vulgar things, recording everything on his phone. With today's incident, Jacob's dad immediately remembered what he had originally intended to do. In that instant, Jacob's dad wished he could break his legs. How could he treat his sister like that? Overwhelmed with rage, Jacob's dad nearly collapsed, but the closest person, Flora's mom, also saw the filthy images. She clutched her chest, unable to bear it, and fainted on the spot. In an instant, the banquet hall erupted into chaos, filled with countless voices. Those standing farther away hadn't seen the content on Jacob's phone, but they all learned that Jacob had publicly insulted his stepmother and stepsister on his birthday. Jacob's dad had no time to attend to him, quickly helping Flora's mom to the hospital, while the guests continued to make a noisy commotion, leaving only Jacob alone on the stage. He picked up the phone from the ground, his face pale, never imagining that the day he had so eagerly anticipated would turn into such an unimaginable farce. The guests gradually left, and the banquet hall fell into a dead silence after the uproar. With only Jacob and his few brothers remaining, they looked at each other and finally stepped forward. Jacob, do you want to go to the hospital to see Auntie? Right after you went on stage, a few of us got curious and opened the gift Flora gave you, and that's when we found that thing. Sorry, Jacob, but if that's really the case, releasing the video would be too unfair to Flora. They were all talking at once. In fact, based on Jacob's dad's attitude earlier and the contents of the contract, everyone knew that the matter with his mother was most likely true. They just didn't dare to provoke him now. Jacob seemed to have lost his soul. He had clearly seen the contract himself, with his father and mother's names on it, yet he had never known about this matter. His lips parted as if to say something, but his throat was parched and dry. He had done so many things to Flora under the guise of revenge, even ruining her legs and making it impossible for her to ever fulfill her dream of dancing, and now he was being told that he had been the one in the wrong all along. He recalled his past interactions with Flora, the way her eyes always held a glimmer of starlight, the way she looked at him with undisguised affection, but all of that had become nothing more than a tool for him to use her. After a long while, he spoke, his voice hoarse. Flora, where is she? he still hadn't seen her. The brothers shook their heads at each other. They hadn't seen her either. Jacob walked out silently and went to the hospital. Flora's mom had just woken up, and upon seeing him, she couldn't help but tear up. She had no idea that her daughter had been Jacob's target all along. Get out. Her face was cold, unwilling to see him, but Jacob paid no attention, standing rigidly by the hospital bed with no expression on his face, as if his soul had been drained. Auntie, where is Flora? At the mention of her daughter's name, Flora's mom felt a surge of anger. For so many years, for his sake and that of his deceased mother, she had ignored the gossip outside. She thought that if she just endured it, Jacob would see her kindness toward him, gradually accept her, and form a new family. But only now did she realize that he had always resented her, all because of those baseless things. He deceived her daughter so many times. They even spent day and night together. Flora's mom recalled how her daughter used to always talk about having a loving boyfriend, but after her leg was injured, she never mentioned him again. Now, thinking back, perhaps Flora had discovered everything back then, which is why she chose to leave everything behind and go abroad. It's a pity that her daughter had to endure it all alone until now. Flora's mom was heartbroken to the extreme. She cried and pounded the bed. Jacob stood there silently without saying a word, until Jacob's dad came over. Seeing this scene, he immediately flew into a rage and without hesitation slapped him again. She's your sister, how could you lay a hand on her? He didn't dodge, and was slapped until blood trickled from the corner of his mouth, his ears ringing incessantly. He looked up and with difficulty asked that question again. Dad, Flora, where is she? Flora's mom is already hospitalized. Flora wouldn't possibly not come, yet he didn't see her, and her phone was constantly unreachable, as if she was deliberately avoiding him. This stirred unease in his heart. He couldn't even fathom how Flora had endured for so long knowing the truth, tolerating his cruel revenge against her. At the thought of those things, his heart grew increasingly troubled, as if gripped by a hand, making it hard to breathe. This posture made Jacob's dad furious. He pointed at his son and yelled, "Why are you asking about her? What else do you want to do? Do you still want to harm her?" Jacob choked up. He clenched his fists, unable to utter a word in rebuttal. He didn't know what he wanted to do either. Over the past many years, driven by revenge, he had never once looked at Flora properly, but once the reason for revenge was gone, he realized how fragile the connection between them was. He had lost track of her just like that, unable to even say a word of apology to her. He gritted his teeth and lowered his head. "Dad, Flora, she won't forgive me, will she?" Jacob's dad let out a cold laugh, giving no response to his question. All that was known was that after Flora's mom recovered, Jacob's dad personally took matters into his own hands, administering the family punishment on Jacob with 99 lashes, beating his son half to death until he was barely breathing, his entire back a bloody, mangled mess. Throughout the process, Jacob endured it all in silence, his eyes unfocused, stubbornly asking where Flora had gone. Jacob's dad snorted, turned around, and left without answering him. Kelsey's house. Elizabeth sat worriedly by Jacob's bedside. She had also learned about what happened at the birthday party and held his hand with deep concern. "Jacob, why must you be like this?" The person lying on the bed was covered in wounds, his face devoid of spirit. "I owe her. I was wrong," he murmured, his eyes lacking any light. This was the first time Elizabeth had seen him like this. Since they had known each other since childhood, Jacob had always been proud, yet now he was utterly disheartened because of a woman. "Even if it's wrong, it can be made up for. Jacob, we can give her money, find her the best doctors, and support her for a lifetime," Elizabeth said, causing the man's eyes to show a moment of confusion. He turned his head to look at her, somewhat puzzled and lost. "We," her heart trembled. "Jacob, you said before that after handling this matter, you would be with me. We would get married." "Jacob." For some reason, Elizabeth suddenly felt a pang of panic. She quickly brought up their promises, the bond they had since childhood, the years of long distance with letters going back and forth, and countless train and plane tickets. They had agreed they would marry, but hearing this, Jacob's eyes still showed no emotion. He nodded faintly, reverting to that lifeless state, as if he had shut himself off, uninterested in everything around him. Elizabeth bit her lip and continued speaking. "Jacob, I have an important dance competition in a couple of days. Will you come?" Jacob fell silent again. After a long while, just as she thought there would be no answer, Jacob suddenly thought of something, a trace of heartache flashing in his eyes. "Flora, she can no longer dance. I must find her." As he spoke, he struggled to get up from the bed. The movement caused fresh bloodstains to seep through his back. Ignoring the Elizabeth beside him, he stumbled his way to the living room. Flora's mom and Jacob's dad were sitting there discussing something, while Jacob knelt before them, kowtowing repeatedly. Dad, Auntie, I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I want to apologize to Flora. I want to make it up to her. Please just tell me where Flora has gone. I won't do anything. I just want to say sorry to her in person. The man's lips trembled as he kowtowed heavily, disregarding his injuries. Soon, the floor was covered in blood, but the seated couple remained unmoved. Jacob's dad glanced over coldly. Not disturbing her is the best compensation you can give to Flora. These words stabbed him deeply. He trembled, almost collapsing, but managed to steady his swaying body. Jacob lifted his head, crawled on his knees to Flora's mom's side, and solemnly kowtowed to apologize to her. Auntie, I truly know I was wrong. Please forgive me. I was blinded by hatred. I always thought my mom died because of you, but I never imagined I was the one who caused the accident. I admit what I did to Flora was too much. By the end, he could no longer bring himself to continue speaking. Flora's mom looked at him and finally nodded. Jacob, I can tell you where Flora went, but she is a good child. From now on, you will only be her brother. Can you do that? Hearing the hope of seeing her again, his eyes lit up for the first time in a long while, and he immediately agreed to the condition. Jacob's dad continued, also, it's time to settle your marriage. I just discussed it with your stepmother, and Miss Elizabeth seems very suitable. What do you think? These words stunned him. He had thought countless times about marrying Elizabeth and having children with her, but because of Flora, he had to suppress his feelings for her. Now that Jacob's dad brought it up, he felt lost, and images of Flora flashed through his mind, her beneath him, crying with love, saying she wanted to marry him, and him promising to take her away. Were all those really my own lies? He didn't respond immediately, but Elizabeth had already heard and come to the living room, excitedly grasping his hand. That's wonderful, Jacob, we can get married. My family will surely agree to our marriage. Faced with Elizabeth's joy, Jacob seemed to snap back to reality. Yes, we can get married. Dad, can you tell me now where Flora has gone? Jacob's dad snorted. Flora has gone to New Zealand and won't be back for a long time. Someone is taking care of her there. Her childhood arranged marriage partner is there. Jacob stood frozen in disbelief. Flora had actually gone to such a faraway place all alone. He couldn't even see her if he wanted to. A feeling of congestion and frustration welled up in his chest, as if he had lost something. Jacob unconsciously raised his hand and pressed it against his chest, where it ached. With the help of the flight attendant, Flora left the airport in a wheelchair and saw a man walking toward her. Flora, right, long time no see. The man smiled and naturally pushed her along. Childhood memories were too distant. Flora only had a vague impression of Justin from back then. Seeing him in person now, she faintly recalled and returned a smile. Justin, sorry to trouble you. The man's name is Justin, who immigrated to New Zealand over a decade ago, earned his doctorate there, and is a leading orthopedic expert. Although they were engaged in an arranged marriage as children, they only actually spent a few years together. Later, Flora went with Flora's mom to Kelsey's house, where she met Jacob, and this once close Justin was forgotten. Now, reunited with an old acquaintance who seemed so different from her memories, especially with her broken leg. She couldn't help but feel somewhat awkward, but Justin showed no sign of strangeness. He wheeled her to the parking lot, lifted her immobile body into the passenger seat, thoughtfully fastened her seatbelt, adjusted her legs into a comfortable position, and even brought out a blanket. This made Flora wave her hand awkwardly in embarrassment. No need for that, Justin. My legs have no feeling, so I won't feel cold. The man acted as if he hadn't heard. Smoothing the edges of the blanket before looking up at her. You may not feel cold now, but once you recover, you could develop health issues from carelessness at this time. His gentle words made Flora pause. The girl lowered her head, then raised it again, seemingly holding back something as she clenched her hands and spoke cautiously in a soft voice. My legs, do they really have a chance to recover? Her eyes were filled with hope, staring straight at the man. Justin did not avoid her gaze and gave her a definite answer. Not just a chance, they will definitely recover. Will I be able to stand up again? Yes. Can I still dance? Yes. Then, what price do I have to pay? Justin cupped her face, seeing the helpless yet excited tears, which he gently wiped away with his hand as he answered her. There's no price to pay, Flora. Even if it weren't you, I would help every patient. But because it is you, I will work even harder to fulfill your wish. In that moment, Flora finally stopped restraining her emotions. She hugged Justin tightly, her body trembling. Thank you, Justin. The man silently comforted her. After Flora calmed down, Justin took her back to the villa, having prepared in advance. Everything inside was arranged in pairs. Justin pushed her wheelchair to tour the villa, carefully explaining the purpose of each room, but when they came to a closed door, he paused, seemingly hesitant. Flora immediately realized there must be something inside she shouldn't see. No need to go in, Justin. I'll mostly stay in my room. Although they had a childhood betrothal, Flora knew she wasn't yet at a level to pry into others' secrets. If possible, she didn't want to cause Justin any trouble. The man visibly breathed a sigh of relief, skipped that room, and continued introducing the place, leading her to her own room. This made Flora a little curious. What kind of unspeakable thing was hidden in that room to make Justin so nervous? They hadn't seen each other for almost 20 years. Bringing up the old engagement so suddenly now, had it caused him trouble? Or had it torn apart his own relationship, leaving him with an unspoken regret? At the thought that she might have become the villain, Flora felt her visit was far too abrupt. She tugged at the man's sleeve, wearing an apologetic expression. Justin, actually, the engagement between our families was too hasty. I came here mainly for leg treatment. If you have someone you like, I can explain it clearly to the elders. As if hearing something unbelievable, Justin paused for a moment and asked her in return, do you want to dissolve our marriage? Flora thought for a moment, nodded, then shook her head. I just feel that my sudden arrival has disturbed you. Our family's marriage arrangement was made when we were children. It shouldn't bind you and keep you from being with someone you truly love. Justin immediately realized he had misunderstood, and a helpless smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. You're not disturbing me, on the contrary. Ever since Auntie told me you were coming, I've been looking forward to this day. I know you're here for treatment for your legs, and I won't force you to marry me because of this. But when you're able to stand again, I hope you'll give me a chance and decide then whether you want to marry me. Is that okay? The man spoke calmly and thoughtfully, considering everything. Flora had no reason to refuse. Under his gaze, she nodded gently and moved into the villa. Justin set up a separate operating room, prepared all the medical equipment, and began examining Flora's legs. Due to delayed treatment after the car accident, her legs had lost sensation. Many top doctors in the country had been unable to help, but Justin had already reviewed Flora's leg scans a month earlier. As long as the surgery was successful and she persisted with rehabilitation, the chances of a full recovery were very high. But now, upon re-examining, he found that her legs were in a worse condition than before. In addition to extensive bruising and muscle necrosis, there was also a large area of burns. His expression turned grave. Unable to imagine what she had gone through during this time to have left such ugly scars, what pained him even more was that Flora seemed to have grown accustomed to such legs, showing no emotion, just calmly hanging her head. Your injuries have gotten worse, Justin whispered. Remembering the sea of fire that nearly trapped her, Flora bit her lip and fell into silent stillness. Fortunately, it didn't affect the muscles or bones, so the chances of recovery are very high. But your body is too weak. You'll need to rest for a while before the surgery. Flora, be prepared. She nodded. Afterward, to ensure the surgery could proceed smoothly, Justin devised a series of plans for her. Her poor health required nutritional supplements. Justin personally prepared 3 meals a day for her, strictly controlling her diet. Her legs needed massage. Justin kneeled halfway every day to rub her necrotic muscles, helping her adapt to rehabilitation as soon as possible after surgery. In addition, Flora had to endure the stimulation of acupuncture. Dense silver needles were inserted into her legs. Justin would rotate them to stimulate her nerve sensitivity. Every day, Flora found her greatest joy in the moments she felt pain in her legs, and her greatest suffering was also due to the pain. But as long as she remembered that enduring this would increase the chances of her surgery's success, Flora mustered endless courage. Justin stroked her hair, watching her endure the pain with a heart full of pity, wishing he could bear it for her. His eyes were somber as he massaged her legs after the acupuncture, distracting her with conversation. If the surgery is successful, I'll tell you a secret. This move was very effective. Flora, her first thought was of that room that couldn't be entered, and she smiled weakly. If the surgery is successful, I'll tell you a secret too. This made the man raise an eyebrow slightly, then curl the corner of his mouth. All right, I'll be waiting to hear it. After this sentence, Flora fell silent briefly, her fingers clutching the hem of her clothes. The closer it got to the day of the surgery, the more restless her heart became, and she even had nightmares. Justin noticed her small gesture. After massaging her leg, he stood up and patted Flora's head, still worried. The woman nodded hesitantly. Well, in case it doesn't work, then I'll take responsibility for you for a lifetime. Justin stopped her words, looking at her seriously. And it won't fail. Believe me, I can make you stand up again and return to the stage that belongs to you. Those eyes were incredibly resolute, calming Flora's heart. She was no longer anxious and smiled softly. All right, I believe you. Soon it was the day of the surgery, and Flora lay nervously in the operating room. Despite all the preparations, She couldn't help but worry. She hesitated, as if wanting to say something, but Justin stopped her with a soft, smiling whisper. Don't overthink it, just get some sleep. His words seemed to carry a magical power, soothing her. Flora nodded, took a deep breath, and signaled that she was ready. The anesthesia was injected into her arm, and soon, Flora became drowsy. In the last second of her vision, it was Justin leaning down to kiss her forehead, whispering something in her ear, before she could make out what it was. She couldn't hold on any longer and closed her eyes. When Flora opened her eyes again, the ceiling above her was that of Justin's home, the same one she had seen every day upon waking recently. This meant the surgery was over. What about her legs? Had it been a success or a failure? She couldn't wait to try to feel the presence of her legs. Perhaps because the anesthesia hadn't completely worn off, she couldn't sense any pain or other sensations. Just like before, there was no feeling at all. This made Flora a bit panicked. She slowly raised her hand, wanting to touch them, but as soon as she moved her fingers a few times, a pair of warm, broad palms held hers. Don't rush, the surgery just ended, you need to recover. Justin leaned by the bedside, his face full of exhaustion. Was it successful? Flora trembled as she asked the question. Justin remained silent. Flora forced a smile. It's okay, everyone said it couldn't be cured anyway. You've already helped me so much. Failure was expected, I won't mind. And you shouldn't blame yourself either. This is just a normal outcome. She didn't know whether she was comforting Justin or herself, rambling on, trying to prove that it was just a surgery that could reasonably fail. But her panic betrayed her. She wanted to hear that result more than anyone. Tears streamed uncontrollably down her cheeks, falling unnoticed onto the bed, dampening the sheets. Justin smiled helplessly and pinched her cheek. What are you thinking? Of course the surgery was successful. I told you before, it would definitely succeed. Flora froze, staring at Su Chenxian in disbelief. Realizing he wasn't joking, she cried even more intensely. All the tension, pressure, and anticipation of the past days could finally be released without restraint at this moment. Flora threw her arms around the person in front of her, unable to hold back her sobs. I thought it failed. I thought I really wouldn't be able to stand up again. The other person gently stroked her back, smiling silently. He explained to her that she had just had surgery, and not only had the anesthesia not worn off, but she also needed time to wait. About 2 hours later, the anesthesia wore off. Flora tried to move her legs again, and this time she succeeded. She could clearly feel every sensation coming from her legs, proving that her legs could truly recover. She couldn't help but hug Justin and cry once more. She wasn't usually someone who cried so easily, and she thought she had shed all her tears after parting with Jacob. But now her heart was beating with hope. She had been given a chance at rebirth, finally able to return to the stage she had longed for. Thank you. Really thank you, Justin, she cried, held tightly by the man as if to vent all the grievances of these years. Flora buried her face in his chest and wept uncontrollably. She didn't know how long she had cried or how many tears she had shed, only that it had grown dark outside. Justin was still holding her gently, never tiring of it, and her emotions finally settled as she gripped his shoulders and gently nuzzled against him. You said earlier that you had a secret to tell me. Justin nodded, looking at her swollen eyes from crying, and couldn't help but chuckle softly. I thought you had forgotten all about it. Flora blushed. Quickly covering her disheveled appearance, Justin held her hand, leading her step by step slowly forward, until they reached the door of the room that had never been opened. Everything you want to know is inside. Flora, go see for yourself. Flora took a deep breath and pushed the door open with her own strength. Instantly, what was inside shocked her so much she almost forgot to breathe. It was filled with photos of her, from a young age, even noting what she was doing at the time. She saw her 8-year-old self, following closely behind Justin. At 10 years old, she was happily clinging to the boy's neck on Justin's back. At 12, her tear-filled red eyes when they parted. After that, traces of her growth no longer included Justin, yet he was always watching over her. Those childhood memories were like old photographs, unveiling her dusty past. It turns out that before she met Jacob, she and Justin were so close. The man walked to her side and spoke in a low voice. I've been watching you all these years, Flora, but I knew marriage was a childhood matter, so I've been waiting for you. Fortunately, I've waited for you. Would you give me a chance? After these days of being together, Justin's kindness towards her was evident, and she couldn't help but be moved by it. Yet it all felt too dreamlike, making her wonder if this was another trap. She was a coward. She didn't dare gamble with the rest of her life. But Justin's gaze was sincere and intense, burning her heartbeat, making her voice tremble with a hint of tears. I'm afraid, Justin, I've already lost once before. The man was right beside her. his voice resolute. "Flora, you will only get better and better, and your future will be more and more brilliant. If you're afraid, then I will wait for you. Until the time you can accept me." This made Flora's heart ache with emotion once again, and she stumbled into the man's embrace. Justin spoke softly in her ear. "It's your turn now, Flora. What is the secret you want to tell me?" The person in the embrace trembled and slowly raised her head. She was hesitant. Revealing scars in front of others was not her intention. If possible, she would have kept that matter buried deep inside forever. But avoidance was not in her nature. Just as Justin had said, her future would surely get better and better. She suppressed the fear within her, exposing her most vulnerable part. "I was with my brother for 8 years before." She made everything from those years clear to Justin, including all the reckless and shameful things she had done to please Jacob. Even though she no longer loved him, the past remained her nightmare, always making her fear that if she hadn't realized it in time, she might have fallen into irredeemable ruin by now. Flora forced a faint smile and lowered her eyes. "If you think I'm tainted, you can still take back what you just said. I'll also call off the marriage alliance. I'll explain it to my parents and won't put you in a difficult position. I'm already very grateful to you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been able to stand up again." Before she could finish, Justin pulled her into an embrace and spoke gently into her ear. "In my heart, you are the purest. Everything I just said is true, and I won't take it back. I've waited a long time for you to see me, and waiting a little longer is nothing." Perhaps this embrace was too warm. Flora reached out and held on tightly, burying her face in it, tears streaming down continuously. In the following days, she followed Justin's plan every day, doing leg rehabilitation exercises. At first, she couldn't stand for long periods, and her muscles were stiff, no longer as flexible as they once were, but with each day of effort, she could clearly feel her legs slowly improving, and she was able to perform some simple dance moves. This excited her immensely, and she persisted with her rehabilitation every day. Justin told her that at most in 6 months, her leg would fully recover. During the recovery process, Justin still treated her with the same attitude as before, but some feelings had quietly changed. He would invite her to dinner in a private room on the 99th floor, where it felt as if one could reach out and touch the clouds and the moon. In the surprisingly romantic scenery, Flora's eyes sparkled with starlight. "This is the first time I've known about this restaurant. It's really beautiful," Flora praised sincerely, her gaze lingering outside the window. "She has recovered well now and can move around on her own without help." Justin smiled and pressed the call bell on the table. The next second, a waiter pushed in a cake cart. Her gaze softened even more. "A gift for you, Flora." Justin said this, letting her see the words on the cake, which wished Flora a swift rise to the stage. They also went on a drift boat ride. The turbulent currents sent their small boat rushing straight ahead, splashing layers upon layers of water. Originally, Justin did not approve of such a project because it could be dangerous, but Flora was cunning and asked him, "If there's danger, will you protect me?" Justin was speechless. He knew that if anything really happened, he would protect Flora at all costs, never letting her feel heartache again. Flora was having a great time. The cold water soaked her clothes, but she didn't feel cold, only excitement. At a sharp turn, she lost her balance and fell into Justin's arms, leaning against his firm chest as he carefully held her. "Be careful, the current here is strong." Hearing the urgent reminder, Flora couldn't help but smile, naturally wrapping her arms around the man's waist, hiding in his embrace to avoid the splashing water, then laughing uncontrollably at Justin's once immaculate hairstyle, now thoroughly drenched and disheveled. Justin was taken aback for a moment, then smiled along with her, his expression gentle. In the later stages of her rehabilitation, Justin took Flora to New Zealand's largest dance theatre. She had now almost fully recovered, though she still couldn't overexert herself, or there would be a risk of relapse in her legs, but performing a short piece was no problem. Flora was already a top-tier dancer before, and now, after a long time, she put on her performance costume again, making her whole being brim with excitement. On the empty stage, she moved her body like a dancing butterfly, as if smelling the scent of sunlight, filling her mentor's eyes with admiration. "Excellent, full of potential. Director Sier has really found a promising talent for me. Miss Flora will surely become the most popular figure in our theatre in the future." Flora smiled shyly, her face blushing. "You flatter me. I still have much to learn." The mentor nodded again, smiling at Justin. "Is Miss Flora Mr. Sier's girlfriend? Humble and not arrogant, that's a rare quality." Justin didn't refute, his broad hand clasped hers, and he nodded in agreement. "That's right, she's doing well. I'll leave her in your care from now on." Flora's face turned even redder, but she said nothing. After it was over, They walked hand in hand on the road, admiring the beautiful night scenery together. Flora couldn't help but complain playfully. "I haven't even agreed to be your girlfriend yet." Justin squeezed her hand. "I was too impatient, always wanting to have you. Now that you're really getting better, I worry that you might fly to a farther place." The man's voice was low, carrying a rare hint of unease. "So he can be flustered too, after all this time together." Flora had always thought he never got nervous. Now that she saw this other side of him, Flora couldn't help but curl the corners of her mouth and chuckle softly. "What if I really go somewhere far away? Keep waiting for you." Justin thought for a moment, making Flora laugh. "You're such a fool." The man also laughed, not realizing when they had walked into a banquet hall. He pressed the switch, and the bright lights turned on, illuminating the banquet hall. Making Flora wide-eyed and unable to believe it, the place was understated yet luxurious, showing the host's meticulous attention to detail everywhere. Even the fresh flowers still had dewdrops on them, having been specially airlifted in. She let out a soft gasp and, without realizing it, walked onto the stage. She was still in shock. Justin had already taken her hand, his gaze gentle. "If you like, why don't we consider this our engagement scene?" She had her suspicions, but it wasn't until she heard it with her own ears that she confirmed his intentions. She had originally come to New Zealand just to heal her legs, but Justin had given her so much that it filled the void in her heart once again. She no longer fears that burning passion. "Okay." She looked into Justin's eyes and gave him a clear answer. "Jacob, it's been over half a year. It's time you accept reality." In the villa Jacob had bought himself, his brothers watched with pity as the man drank bottle after bottle. Since Flora left, after learning the truth of that year, Jacob has been drowning his sorrows in alcohol, feeling utterly dejected. He doesn't even know what he's doing anymore, even though he's about to marry Elizabeth. He still can't let go of that person in his heart. During this time, his brothers kept coming to persuade him, but he wouldn't listen to anything. As if only alcohol in the world could help him escape reality, his brothers sat beside him, their brows furrowed with worry, sighing incessantly. "It's been so long. Jacob still can't accept it. We've never seen him like this before." Although the revenge plan failed, those rumors have now been suppressed. Very few people in the circle know the truth. And Jacob and Elizabeth are getting married soon. It's just not like him to keep acting like this. Back when Jacob's company was about to go bankrupt, he wasn't like this. It's been half a year already. His health must be ruined from all the drinking. Do you think it's because of... The final suspicion lingered in that unfinished sentence, but everyone knew whose name it was, though no one was willing to say it aloud, because as soon as those 3 words are spoken, Jacob would go crazy as if triggered, and no one knows where his anger and pain come from. They lowered their voices and gathered together. Is Jacob still feeling guilty, having been taking revenge on the wrong person all along? That must be a heavy blow to him. But now Flora is gone, no matter who of us calls her. The line won't connect. Jacob can't even apologize. Or is it, Jacob actually fell in love with her? The words were spoken cautiously, as if afraid of being overheard. Some refused to believe it, while others doubted. After all, this was Jacob. How could he have gotten so caught up in the act that he lost himself in it? But how could anyone explain what was happening in a way that made sense with reality? Just as they were hesitating, an angry female voice cut in. "Jacob, how long are you going to wallow in despair?" It was Elizabeth. She had found her way over and immediately spotted the man slumped drunkenly on the ground, her brows furrowed, her face full of displeasure. They had been engaged for so long, and both the Kelsey family and the Sue family had been discussing when to hold the wedding, but Jacob kept putting it off and refusing, leading to them still being engaged after half a year, while her fiancé spent every day hiding away and drinking. She was very angry, unable to understand why the person who once loved her so much had become like this. They had clearly imagined countless times what their wedding would be like. Yet because of Flora, Jacob had become listless and unconscious all day long. She strode over to Jacob, standing before him with an unhappy expression. "Jacob, no matter what, you must come back with me today and set the wedding date. I've waited too long, and I don't want to wait any longer." The woman's voice stirred a slight reaction in the drunken man. In his eyes, he didn't recognize who was standing before him, yet her words felt so familiar. He was lost in thought. "All right. I won't make you wait any longer. We'll go find Dad and Auntie today." Elizabeth's expression softened a bit, but the man's next words shattered her completely. "If they don't agree, I'll elope with you. Flora, we'll be together forever. Your brother won't break his promise." Flora, these 3 words were like a bomb, igniting the resentment she had been holding for days. She had been worrying about him every day, yet he was thinking of another woman. Elizabeth raised her hand and slapped him across the face, her eyes red with fury. "Jacob, Look closely at who I am. Have you fallen in love with Flora? Do you no longer want to marry me? She screamed sharply, startling the group of brothers nearby who hurried forward. Miss, how could Jacob possibly be in love with Flora? All that in the past was just revenge. Right now, Jacob is only feeling down because he's been dealt a blow. That's right. You mustn't overthink it. Jacob has said many times before, he and Flora are just putting on an act. Elizabeth only stared at Jacob, her eyes red as she screamed, I just want you to say it. Jacob, you tell me yourself. Do you love Flora or not? Do you still want to marry me or not? The man remained silent, causing Elizabeth's expression to slowly shatter, her gaze fixed straight on Jacob, as if trying to see through his eyes into his heart, yet the other remained silent, head bowed, hiding all expression. The brothers grew anxious, urging him with pushes, whispering through gritted teeth, Jacob, say something, don't let this escalate, you and Elizabeth have been in love for so many years, Jacob, don't lose your head at a time like this. Yes, Flora is already gone, wasn't your wish before to marry Elizabeth? Even they knew how deeply in love they once were. Elizabeth's eyes welled up with tears, her voice trembling, come back with me, let's go find Mom and Dad, we'll get married tomorrow. Jacob, just nod, and I can pretend nothing happened, you just had too much to drink today. The woman looked at him, eagerly waiting for his nod, but Jacob's dry throat uttered words that broke her heart once again. Elizabeth, just give me a little more time. Elizabeth's tears finally fell, her voice filled with despair. You've been saying that for half a year. Jacob, you've made me wait for half a year. How much longer do you want me to wait? Are you never going to marry me because of Flora? Tell me, give me an answer. We don't have to get married now, I can wait, but tell me, do you want to marry me now? The woman's questioning was sincere and piercing, tearing apart the self-deceptive facade he had maintained for the past 6 months, as if trying to dig his heart out. He could hardly recall how he felt during those days when he was in love with Elizabeth. Scene after scene, all he could picture was the sweet, adorable face of his girl. His silence was the clearest answer. Even his brothers grew anxious, knowing that letting this continue would only make things worse, and quickly tried to soothe Elizabeth. Don't overthink it. Right now, Jacob is in a bad mood. It's normal for him to be confused about these things. Yeah, once he figures it out, he'll definitely come find you. Everyone knows how long you've loved each other. Jacob would never not marry you. Elizabeth, go home first. Once Jacob sobers up, he'll definitely come looking for you. Their chatter only made Elizabeth's expression colder, a bitter smile tugging at the corner of her lips. I don't think he's drunk, I think he's finally speaking his mind. But Jacob, you probably don't know yet. Flora is already engaged in New Zealand and will be married soon. She never cared about you at all. At these words, everyone was shocked. Flora is actually getting engaged. Although they all knew she went to New Zealand to find her childhood arranged marriage partner, so much time had passed that the childhood betrothal was just the elders' wishful thinking. Few took it seriously. Everyone thought Flora was just using it as an excuse to avoid Jacob, and even he thought so himself. That's why he had always been unwilling to marry Elizabeth. He always thought he could wait until Flora returned, apologize, and make it up to her properly. But now he's being told she's already engaged and will marry another man. An indescribable heaviness filled his chest. He clenched his fists, and a flicker of emotion stirred in his previously lifeless eyes, making Elizabeth laugh. Look at yourself now. If it weren't for falling in love with Flora, would you have ended up like this, Jacob? Stop deceiving yourself. I really look down on you. The woman's sharp voice pierced through the thin window screen. The brothers could no longer ignore the answer and turned to Jacob, cautiously asking, Jacob, have you really fallen in love with Flora? This was the first time someone had asked him. After a long silence, Jacob suddenly grabbed the bottle of wine beside him and smashed it violently to the ground, shattering it to pieces, as if his emotions had suddenly exploded. He could no longer ignore his heart, his eyes red-rimmed, roaring like a trapped beast. I just fell in love with her. Is that not allowed? I just fell in love with Flora. His eyes were red as he spoke with sorrow and anger, even though they had a premonition in their hearts. Hearing Jacob say it out loud still left everyone with a shocked expression. Meanwhile, Elizabeth smiled coldly, as if she no longer knew him. She and Jacob were childhood sweethearts, just as she had told Flora before. Since the age of 5, Jacob had always protected her. They went to and from school together, did homework together, and for the sake of her smile, Jacob always prepared countless surprises. Even after they were separated, they kept in touch. The letters the young man sent were always filled with burning emotions. Although he never confessed, everyone around them believed they would eventually marry, until she returned and discovered Jacob already had a girlfriend, and it was his sister. They all said he did it for revenge, but true revenge would never be so soft-hearted. She should have seen it earlier. Elizabeth, tears slid from the corners of her eyes as she watched Jacob smash one wine bottle after another, as if venting the depression and bitterness in his heart over this period. He spoke fiercely, his voice echoing in the room, filled with unmistakable pain. I can't forget her. I just can't forget her. I want to be with Flora. For the 6 months since losing Flora, he had lived in unbearable agony. Every day, he would think of their past. In this very house, she had held his hand and kissed him secretly with passionate love, even planning to abandon everything and elope with him. She would care for him, she would hold him while they slept, depending on him wholeheartedly, and she even wanted to marry him. Her eyes were always smiling, carrying tiny specks of starlight within them, drawing him to kiss her countless times. These things about Flora seemed etched into his memory, refusing to fade. Whether drunk or sober, his mind was filled with her, her figure, her voice, the way she called him brother, her pitiable tears all felt like an invisible hand tightly gripping his heart, making every breath remind him of the scent he once buried in Flora's neck. Jacob had never imagined he would become like this. He was once aloof and ruthless, a man who would stop at nothing for revenge, enduring for years, but now, he had lost everything. His revenge was a mistake. He had hurt the one who loved him most, drowning himself in alcohol and memories, unable to break free. He didn't understand why he was in such agony. Flora seemed to have taken his heart with her, making him miss her every moment. He could only numb himself with alcohol, hoping to ease the pain, but whether in reality or illusion, in joy or struggle, everything was occupied by Flora. She was like an inescapable obsession, entwined around his heart, leaving him immersed in pain day after day. He didn't dare admit that he loved her. He had done so many things to hurt her, treating her as an object of revenge and exploitation. How could he admit that the person he once hated to the bone had become an indispensable part of his life? But at this moment, he could no longer hold back. The pain of losing Flora and the regret of learning about her engagement were deeply intertwined, driving him nearly mad. He had long fallen in love with Flora. He couldn't live without her. He let out a hoarse, low growl, his bloodshot eyes welling up with tears. Elizabeth clenched her teeth, watching the person she loved suffer for someone else. Her heart shattered, making it hard to breathe. She wiped away her tears. If you really can't let her go, then go find her. Only by seeing her will you know what you truly want. If, by then, you really don't want to marry me, at least I'll know the reason. And we can part on good terms. Jacob was stunned and asked in confusion, go find her. Yes, go find her. Say what you want to say, no matter what. You won't know until you try. If you don't even dare to try and just mope around here feeling down, what kind of man are you? Elizabeth said coldly. This sentence brought him back to his senses. Jacob stood up and suddenly saw the tear stains on Elizabeth's face. He stopped in his tracks. Only then realizing that his outburst had undoubtedly hurt her, he opened his mouth, struggling to speak. I'm sorry, Elizabeth. Elizabeth smiled faintly, another tear sliding down. I'll wait for you to come back. After a night-long flight, Jacob finally landed in New Zealand, arriving at the scene just before Flora's engagement party began. Backstage, Flora had just changed her clothes and was about to leave when she saw Jacob push the door open abruptly. She was stunned, not expecting him to show up, especially at such a time, but then she still spoke, nodding calmly. Brother. She had uttered this address countless times, but this time, Jacob could no longer feel the affection in it. Looking at the person in the evening gown, yet expressionless, the man's heart ached uncontrollably. As if threatening to drown him, his eyes reddened instantly. The longing and guilt from days apart mingled together, making him want to hold that slender figure tightly in his arms. Just like in the past, unable to resist, he took 2 steps forward and called out to her in a low voice, Flora. His eyes held a multitude of complex emotions, his pained voice evoking deep empathy. But Flora showed no reaction, looking at him as if he were a stranger. He panicked, gazing at her pleadingly. Flora. I'm sorry, it was my fault before. I didn't uncover the truth and used you to seek revenge on Auntie. I shouldn't have hurt you. I realize my mistake now. Can you forgive me? Flora remained as indifferent as ever, showing neither resentment nor joy, and gave a slight nod. I know, but I no longer care about those things. It's almost time. I should head to the banquet hall. Brother. Jacob's heart sank as if cut by a knife, and his face turned pale. Are you still holding a grudge against me? I truly know I was wrong. Dad used the family discipline on me, and I even kowtowed to apologize to Auntie. I want to make it up to you. Flora, I want to tell you, I did get together with you out of revenge at first, but over these 8 years, I've completely fallen in love with you. Flora, give me a chance. Okay, I'll talk to Mom and Dad. Let's not go through with the arranged marriage. Let's elope, go to a country where cousins can marry. I'll spend the rest of my life loving you." The man's eyes reddened, his voice trembling and pitiful, as if he were about to shed tears for her the next second. "But it's too late, I stopped loving you long ago, why can't you understand?" Flora didn't respond to those words, just watched him calmly. In her eyes, there wasn't a trace of love for him, not even hatred. "Brother, today is my engagement banquet. Are you planning to release my intimate photos and videos at an occasion like this, to make the Sue family, a laughingstock?" His heart felt as if it were being tightly gripped, making it hard to breathe. His voice trembled as he slowly drew closer to the one he loved. "No, I'm not. I know I was wrong, Flora, believe me. I will never hurt you again. I will make it up to you. I will love you properly." She was right before him. Like his salvation, Jacob knelt before her, pulling Flora tightly into his arms. Once a proud and lofty man, he now knelt humbly to win back the woman he loved. Willing to offer everything he had just to show her his sincerity, which was filled with regret and pain. But Flora no longer needed it. She sighed once more, her tone devoid of emotion, as if stating an eternal, unchanging truth. "Brother, I'm leaving." The soft body was no longer as warm as he remembered. Instead, it pierced him until he bled. Yet Jacob refused to let go, his trembling voice breaking into sobs, warm tears soaking into the lavish gown's hem. "Flora, don't go, don't go." His voice was almost pleading as he held the person in front of him tightly. Flora looked at him, shook off his hand, and stood up. She had been sitting on the chair all along. Jacob hadn't noticed that her legs had already recovered. Under the light, Flora uttered the final words cruelly. "Look, brother, my legs have healed, all the pain you left me has ended, don't block my way anymore." The man's face turned deathly pale. No, no, Flora. He still wanted to rush over, to hold his beloved. Afraid that this might be the last time, just as Jacob was about to touch Flora, someone pushed the door open, pulled him back a few steps, and shielded Flora behind them. He was about to get angry when he heard Flora's surprised voice. "Yang Han, what brings you here?" Only then did he realize that this was the person she was going to marry. "I heard your brother is here. I'll come to greet him." Justin spoke with polite manners, but his tone was utterly devoid of warmth. Sweeping over the nearby Jacob like a block of ice, "One should know their place. You were the one who lost her in the first place, so don't embarrass yourself by coming back now." Clenching his fists in anger, he roared out with a cold expression. "This is between me and Flora. Get out of my way." Justin stood firm, not backing down, positioning himself in front of Flora. "Now she is my fiancée. She is mine. Jacob, who do you think you are? You arrogantly hurt her. And now you shamelessly come asking for forgiveness. What do you take her for? Your toy?" Jacob's face was icy cold, almost at the peak of fury. How dare someone who has only been around for half a year judge him like that? "I'll tell you what I am. I am Flora's brother. I am her lover. We've been in love for 8 years. It's me and Flora who belong together. We will get married, have children, and be happy for the rest of our lives. We will." "Enough, Jacob." Flora abruptly cut him off. She looked up, her eyes filled with mocking amusement. "We ended long ago. What right do you have to be with me? You used me, took revenge on me, hurt me, and even tried to shame me with those videos, to ruin my reputation and make me never hold my head up again. How dare you talk about a lifetime with me? For the sake of Mom and Dad, I'm willing to call you brother. But do you really think we still have a future? Jacob, wake up. I can never forgive you." The woman's words were like a knife, stabbing into his heart and extinguishing all his fighting spirit. The man, who had been fiercely arguing just moments ago, suddenly turned pale. Only when facing Flora would he set aside all his pride and dignity, lowering his head with reddened eyes to beg, "Flora, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Don't be so cruel to me. You still like me, don't you? I'll change. I'll make it up to you." Flora lowered her eyes, her gaze devoid of sorrow or joy, and dealt Jacob the most painful blow. "Besides, Yang Han is good, better than you. I like him." With a boom, it felt as if something inside had collapsed. Jacob looked on in disbelief, his face almost devoid of color, his lips trembling as if he might collapse at any moment. His gaze was so pitiful, falling on Flora's face as if searching for an answer, but she held Justin's hand and walked past him toward the door. At that moment, his heart felt as if it had died once over, leaving him rooted to the spot, unable to move. Only when he heard the sound of a car starting outside did he let out a painful roar and chase after it like a madman, but he forgot he was on the road, and the next second Jacob was hit by a speeding car and had both legs crushed. The pain made him groan, but what hurt even more was his heart, powerless. He watched the car that had already disappeared from view, feeling as if he had suddenly become Flora from half a year ago. Back then, she had also been in a car accident, her legs crushed. At that time, Did she already know that he had planned it all? He covered his face in the pool of blood and shed tears. Brother, it hurts so much, my legs. The sound of the girl's crying echoed in his mind. Jacob sat up abruptly, his face pale. He had another nightmare. Ever since returning to the country and losing his legs, he had been constantly immersed in the past. His brothers came to see him. Jacob refused their help, moving his body on his own, holding on to the bedside, and struggling to sit in the wheelchair. Today was his and Elizabeth's wedding day. Jacob, are you really not going to treat your leg? The doctor said there's still hope for a full recovery, said someone pushing the wheelchair, unable to hold back. Jacob shook his head, looking utterly exhausted. This is what I owe Flora, but her leg has already healed. You don't have to, I owe it to her. The nanny and butler busied themselves around him, helping him with his styling, changing his clothes, concealing the fatigue on his face, and finally, Jacob's dad pushed him to the grand wedding venue. Elizabeth was already waiting for him in her wedding dress. Even though Jacob had lost his legs, and the Kelsey family hesitantly suggested calling off the marriage, she did not agree, because she had promised to wait for him. Jacob, we've finally made it to this day, Elizabeth smiled. She was exceptionally beautiful today, like a princess shimmering under the lights. Jacob managed a smile and took her hand. Yes, everything here is arranged just as you like it. I've finally made it happen. The woman smiled without speaking, a blush coloring her cheeks. The wedding proceeded smoothly and orderly, everything going according to plan. Elizabeth's family was applauding. Jacob's dad and Flora's mom were also clapping. But Jacob felt numb all over, as if he had lost his thoughts and soul. The host excitedly recited the solemn vows. Elizabeth, miss, do you promise to love Mr. Jacob for a lifetime and never leave him? Elizabeth did not hesitate and answered the question with a smile immediately. Mr. Flora, are you willing to love Miss Elizabeth for a lifetime and stay with her forever? Jacob smiled and gave the answer as well. Just as he turned his head, he suddenly saw Flora's mom holding a phone, looking at something. Out of hidden curiosity, Jacob glanced over, then froze in a daze. So today was also Flora's wedding day. He saw the person in the video wearing a white wedding dress, with a faint smile, so beautiful it was beyond words, the happiness in her eyes almost overflowing. He hadn't seen it in a long time. His body trembled as he watched the woman he loved walk down the red carpet with Justin, kissing under the blessings, his face instantly turning deathly pale. A voice in his heart screamed not to let Flora marry someone else, but in reality, he could only grip the armrests of his wheelchair tightly, restraining his inner turmoil. He forced himself to stop looking at that cruel yet longed-for scene and continued the ceremony with Elizabeth. As the ring was placed on the woman's hand, Elizabeth leaned down and embraced him, whispering softly into his ear, Jacob, you still forgot. I once said the wedding scene I wanted wasn't like this. I like blue bouquets. Pink is what Flora likes, right? Warm tears moistened the side of his face. Jacob suddenly turned his head and realized the entire scene was filled with things Flora loved. The flowers she liked, the decorations she liked, the style she liked, everything but the bride was her. Jacob's heart felt as if it had been brutally stabbed, making it hard to breathe. He wanted to say something, but in the end, only tears flowed. Elizabeth watched him, also in tears, a faint smile on her lips. I'm sorry, he said, his voice unheard by anyone. The MC looked at the couple's tears, and an excited, joyful voice boomed from the microphone. It seems Mr. Flora and Miss Elizabeth are truly in love. They're already crying so much, let's wish them happiness. Thunderous applause filled the room, making Jacob feel as if he were suffocating.